All right, so uh, today we're going to do a deep dive into Schneider Electric Infrastructure Ltd.
Okay.
And looks like you're interested in kind of their recent performance and also their plans for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got two kind of main sources here.
Mm-hmm.
One is their financial report,
Mm-hmm.
which covers the third quarter, and then
Mhm.
also the 9 months leading up to
Yeah,
December 31st, 2024.
got it.
And then we also have their investor presentation, which
Yeah,
gives a little more color and highlights some of their key achievements.
for sure.
So I think we've got a lot to dive into here.
Yeah, it looks like we've got some interesting stuff.
Definitely some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so why don't we just jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
And maybe one of the best places to start is by looking at the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
The market outlook for a company like Schneider Electric.
Yeah, absolutely.
And specifically in India.
Right.
And it looks like India's economy is
Yeah.
projected to see some pretty
Big.
a big growth.
Yeah, definitely.
They're talking about like 6.4% real GDP growth
Mm-hmm.
in 2024-25,
Right.
and potentially even reaching like 6.8% the
Wow.
following year. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that translates into a ton of capital expenditure,
Mm.
which is good news for a
Yeah.
company like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it creates a lot of opportunity when you
Yeah.
have that level of growth and investment happening.
Exactly. And it's not just, broad economic growth.
Right.
They're also talking about some major
Yeah.
government investments that are really
Mm-hmm.
fueling this growth.
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
For example, spending on renewable energy
Right.
is set to jump by almost 40%
Wow.
compared to last year. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge increase.
Yeah, that's massive. And I mean, that's just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Right.
You've got
Yeah,
a huge amount of investment in infrastructure overall.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's not just solar and wind.
Right. It goes way beyond that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're talking about new metro lines, expanded national highways.
Yeah, like
Huge infrastructure overhaul, basically.
really-
Ambitious plans.
really going for it.
Yeah.
And then, in addition to that sort of traditional infrastructure, they're also
Yeah.
investing heavily in these like cutting edge sectors,
Mm-hmm.
like semiconductors, data centers, e-mobility. So,
Right. All those areas where Schneider Electric is
yeah,
well positioned.
like they're standing,
Yeah.
right?
They're-
Where the
it's-
action right there.
Exactly.
And I think that's what makes this so interesting, because they have this diverse range of products
Mm-hmm.
and this strong presence across India. So it's like
Yep.
they're ready to capitalize
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
all these trends.
Yeah, they're set up perfectly to
Mhm.
take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And speaking of capitalizing, you know, the presentation highlights a whole bunch of their recent wins, and
Right.
one that really jumped out at me was their deal to supply. Oh yeah, that's a big one.
India's first SF6 free switchgear.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one.
Like, for those of us who aren't electrical engineers, can you maybe just
Yeah, sure.
explain why this is such a big deal?
Yeah, so basically, SF6,
Okay.
it stands for sulfur hexafluoride.
Okay.
It's a gas that's commonly used in electrical switchgear to prevent short circuits.
Okay.
And it's effective for that. But the problem is,
Yeah.
it's also a really potent greenhouse gas,
Okay.
like way worse than carbon dioxide in
Okay.
terms of its global warming potential. So,
So it's like
yeah.
a necessary evil.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's been the standard for a long time, but there's
Wow.
been a push to find alternatives.
Okay.
So for Schneider to develop a solution that eliminates this
Right.
harmful gas is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a major step for sustainability,
Mhm.
and it's also a smart business move.
Right. Because
Yeah.
there's obviously this.
Growing demand for
Yeah.
sustainable solutions.
Yeah. Right. And it shows that they're really serious
Yeah.
about their commitment to sustainability,
Yeah.
which seems to be increasingly important
It's
for
huge.
companies these days.
Yeah, it's a big focus for investors and consumers alike.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just this one win, right?
No,
They're also providing a transformer.
several other wins in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're providing a transformer for a 150 megawatt solar project.
Wow.
They're working with a green steel manufacturer,
Uh-huh.
and they're also implementing
Yeah.
digital solutions like EcoStructure,
Okay.
which is really interesting.
Yeah, what's that?
So EcoStructure, it's basically a platform that uses data analytics and AI
Oh,
to optimize energy usage
okay.
and also predict maintenance needs.
So it's like
It's like giving these assets a digital brain.
like a smart
Yeah.
system.
They can sense what's going on and
Yeah.
respond accordingly.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
pretty impressive technology.
So they're really hitting all the right notes in terms of both growth
Yeah.
and
Yes.
responsibility.
Yeah, they're kind of firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
They're demonstrating that they're not just ticking boxes.
Right.
They're actually taking a leadership role
Yeah.
in key areas like sustainability, digitalization, innovation.
The whole trifecta.
Yeah, exactly, the trifecta. And
Right.
it's all about building trust
Mm.
and solidifying those relationships with major players across all these different sectors and ultimately positioning themselves as like an indispensable partner
Right.
in India's growth story.
Yeah, you can't do it without
Yeah, exactly.
Schneider.
That's the idea.
Okay.
Mhm.
So they're winning contracts, building partnerships,
Yeah.
and generally, riding this wave of growth in India.
Right.
But to keep up with this momentum,
Yeah,
they're going to need the capacity to deliver, right?
absolutely.
And I see they have plans
Yeah, they're
to boost their production of medium power transformers.
they're looking to expand their capacity there.
It sounds like they're already operating pretty close,
Yeah, to full capacity.
pretty much at full capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So their current capacity for medium power transformers, or MPTs,
Okay.
is 5,500 MVA.
MVA.
Yeah, megavolt amps.
Okay.
And they're operating at about 96% utilization. So,
So they're pretty much maxed out.
yeah, they're pretty much maxed out. So
Okay.
they're proposing to add another 1,500 MVA, which would bring the total to 7,000 MVA.
Okay, so a significant
Yeah, a substantial increase.
Yeah, expansion.
Yeah, and this expansion is going to require an investment of about
Okay.
INR 13.6 crores.
Okay.
And they're going to finance this through a combination of internal accruals.
Okay, so they're using
So basically their earnings.
their own money
Yeah, their own money.
plus a little bit of borrowing.
Plus some borrowing, yeah.
Okay, so they're putting their money
Yeah, they're
where their mouth is.
Yeah.
Definitely putting their money where their mouth is.
literally.
Yeah.
All right, but what do the numbers look like overall?
Yeah, let's dive into the financials.
Yeah, how's their financial performance been? Give us the juicy details.
Okay, so for the 9 months leading up to December 31st, 2024,
Mm-hmm.
their order intake,
Okay.
basically the value of all the new orders they've received, is up by almost 14% year on year.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a big jump.
Yeah, it's a significant increase.
So clearly a lot of demand
Definitely a lot of demand for
Yeah.
what they're offering.
for their products and services.
Absolutely.
Right.
And their actual sales are even more impressive,
Okay.
up by over 18% compared to the same period last year,
Wow.
reaching a total of INR 2050 crores.
So that's the revenue
That's the revenue.
coming in the door.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, to really understand profitability, we got to look at a few other key figures.
Okay.
So one of them is EBIT.
EBIT, what's that?
So that stands for earnings before interest and taxes.
Okay.
And it's basically a measure of the company's operating profit.
Okay.
So how much they're making from
Yeah.
their core operations.
Gotcha.
And Schneider's EBIT is up by almost 40%,
Wow.
reaching INR 296 crores.
That's a huge increase.
That's a massive increase.
Yeah. So they're not just growing,
No,
they're also becoming more profitable.
yeah, they're becoming much more profitable.
Yeah.
They're getting better at turning that growth into
Right.
profit.
Okay, what about the bottom line?
Okay, so the bottom line, that's where we look at PAT,
PAT.
which stands for profit after tax.
Okay.
And that's the ultimate measure of profitability for
Right.
any company.
Okay.
And for Schneider Electric,
Yeah.
their PAT is up over 26%,
Wow.
reaching INR 213.3 crores.
So that's the actual profit
That's the actual profit
they're taking home.
after all the expenses and taxes.
Okay.
Yeah, and this strong performance
Yeah.
is driven by a few key factors.
Okay, like what?
Well, first of all, they have a healthy order backlog,
Okay.
which means they've got plenty of work lined up for the future.
Okay.
They're also really good at executing their projects.
Okay.
So they're delivering on time and on budget.
Okay.
And they've also been focusing on transactional and service businesses,
Got it.
which tend to have higher margins.
Okay, so they're not just relying on like one-off big projects.
Right, exactly. They've got a diversified
Yeah.
revenue stream.
Okay, so they've got a solid
They've
foundation.
got a really strong foundation.
Yeah.
Their financials are looking great,
Mm,
and they're making strategic moves
yeah.
to really capitalize on India's booming economy.
But is this all about just riding the current wave,
That's a good question.
or are they thinking long-term?
Yeah, are they just reacting to the current market conditions, or do
Mhm.
they have a bigger vision?
Right.
I think that's something we need to explore.
Yeah, what are they doing?
They've laid out some key strategic levers
Right.
in their investor presentation.
Okay.
And I think those will give us a better sense of their vision for the future.
All right, let's dig into those
Let's do it.
strategic levers.
Okay.
What are they focusing on?
Okay, so there are three main areas:
Okay.
strengthening partnerships, expanding their service offerings,
Hmm?
and strategically targeting
Okay.
high-growth segments.
Gotcha.
So first, let's talk about partnerships.
Okay.
They're really focusing on building closer relationships
Yeah.
with distributors and panel builders.
Hmm.
So essentially expanding their network and reach
Okay.
within the market. It's
Yeah.
like they're creating this powerful ecosystem
Right.
that extends their capabilities.
So it's not just them doing it all themselves.
No, it's about
Yeah.
collaboration. It's
Yeah.
about leveraging
Right.
the expertise and connections of others.
Okay. What about the service offerings?
Okay.
What's the strategy there?
They're really doubling down on services,
Okay.
particularly those related to modernization,
Mhm.
digitalization, and remote asset monitoring.
Uh-huh.
So they're really betting big on this idea that
Yeah.
the future of infrastructure is smart, connected,
Right.
and data-driven.
Yeah. It's like that smart home concept.
Yeah, exactly. It's like taking that concept and scaling it up to the level of a city
Yeah. To a city or to an entire,
or even to a whole country.
yeah, whole grid.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I'm curious about like how those digital solutions actually work.
Yeah.
Could you give me a concrete example?
So one of their flagship offerings is EcoStruxure,
Okay.
and it's basically a platform that uses sensors and AI
Oh.
to gather and analyze real-time data
Okay.
from all sorts of infrastructure assets,
Okay.
like power grids, buildings, industrial equipment.
So they're getting all this information.
Yeah, they're getting a constant stream
Yeah.
of data.
And then what do they
And then they use that data
you're
to
doing it?
optimize energy consumption,
Okay.
to predict maintenance needs,
So it's like
and even to remotely control
preventing problems
certain operations.
before they happen.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
all
but-
about prevention.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing technology.
Yeah. So it's like giving these assets a digital brain.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they can sense what's going on and respond accordingly.
They can think for themselves in a way.
Yeah.
And make adjustments.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I imagine that probably requires
It
a
does.
significant upfront investment, though.
Yeah. There's definitely an upfront cost.
But then the long-term benefits,
But the long-term benefits are huge.
yeah, outweigh.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Reduced downtime, lower energy bills, fewer accidents,
Right. It all adds up.
longer lifespan for equipment.
Yeah.
Those savings can add up really quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So they're building partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
expanding into these digital services.
Yeah,
And you mentioned targeting specific segments.
right.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so they're definitely not neglecting their
Yeah.
core segments,
Okay.
like power and grid infrastructure,
Yeah.
but they're also making a strategic push
Okay.
into emerging areas like data centers
Oh, wow.
and semiconductors.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why those segments in particular?
Well,
Are they just hot right now?
I mean, they are hot right now, but it's more than that.
Okay.
Data centers are experiencing explosive growth in India,
Okay.
driven by the rapid adoption of cloud computing, big data,
Mm-hmm.
all things digital.
Right.
And the semiconductor industry
Yeah.
is another area with immense potential
Oh.
because India wants to become a global hub
Right.
for chip manufacturing.
Okay. So they're positioning themselves
Exactly.
to ride. you know,
Leverage.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's go back to their financial performance.
Yeah.
You mentioned some pretty impressive growth figures,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm curious to understand, like, what's driving that profitability?
Yeah. What's behind the numbers?
Is it just because they're selling more, or are there
It's definitely not just about selling more.
other factors?
It's a combination of things.
Okay.
They've been able to improve their margins,
Okay.
which means they're making more profit on each sale.
Gotcha.
And they've done this through a few key strategies.
Okay.
First, they've shifted their product mix
Okay.
to focus on higher margin offerings.
Okay. So instead of just selling the basic stuff.
Exactly. So instead of just basic hardware,
Yeah.
they're focusing on specialized services and those more sophisticated digital solutions.
Got it. So it's
So they're moving up the value chain,
yeah,
offering
right.
those more specialized
adding more value.
and profitable products.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else are they doing?
They've also been really successful at implementing price increases
Oh.
for their orders,
Yeah.
which helps offset rising input costs.
Right. Everything's getting more expensive.
Yeah, everything's
Yeah.
getting more expensive, so they need to make sure they're pricing their products accordingly.
Okay.
And then they're also benefiting from economies of scale.
Okay.
So as they sell more,
Right.
their fixed costs get spread out over a larger revenue base,
Okay.
making each unit more profitable.
Gotcha.
And then finally, they've been really laser focused on operational efficiency.
Okay.
So they're streamlining processes, cutting unnecessary expenses.
So it's a real,
Yeah, it's a multifaceted approach.
yeah, multifaceted approach.
They're not just relying on top-line growth.
Right.
They're actively managing their costs, optimizing their offerings,
Okay.
and being really strategic about pricing.
Yeah, so it sounds like a recipe for sustainable
Yeah. Thank you.
profitability.
We're doing all the right things.
Yeah, and it's reflected in their
Thank
financial
you.
results.
Yeah, for example, their EBIT margin,
Okay.
which is a key indicator of profitability, has jumped from 13.2%
Okay.
in the same period last year to
Right.
15.4% this year.
So that's
So that's a significant improvement. That's a really big jump.
Yeah, they're not just growing.
No, they're becoming more profitable there.
As they grow.
Yeah, more profitable as they grow.
Exactly.
But let's not get lost in the numbers.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that they're really deeply committed to sustainability.
Yeah.
How are they putting that commitment into action?
So it's really woven into their strategy.
Okay.
From their product development to their partnerships and community initiatives.
Okay.
I mean, remember that SF6 free switchgear we talked about?
Yeah, that's
just one example.
That's a great example.
They've also been actively promoting their BRSR digital tool.
Hold on, what's BRSR?
Okay, so BRSR stands for Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting.
Okay.
And it's basically a framework developed by the Indian government to encourage companies to integrate sustainability into their operations in their reporting.
Got it.
So Schneider Electric's BRSR digital tool is built on their EcoStruxure platform. And it basically helps companies collect data, analyze their environmental and social impact, and then generate reports that meet all those regulatory requirements.
So they're not just doing the right thing themselves, they're also equipping.
Yeah, they're helping other companies to improve their sustainability performance as well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive initiative.
And it aligns with, this whole global focus.
Yeah, absolutely. It aligns perfectly with the growing focus on ESG factors, environmental, social, and governance.
Right.
So investors are looking at these things more and more when they're making investment decisions.
Right. So it's not just about being a good citizen.
Exactly. It's not just about doing good.
Yeah.
It's also becoming a key driver of business value.
Right. So it's good for the planet and it's good.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
For business.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Exactly.
But it sounds like their sustainability efforts.
Yeah. It goes beyond just
reporting and compliance.
Yeah, reporting and compliance. Yeah. What else are they doing?
Okay, so they're also involved in a whole range of initiatives that focus on things like energy access, education, and community development.
Okay.
So, for example, they're working to provide solar-powered electricity to rural communities in India.
Okay.
Which obviously improves their quality of life.
Yeah.
But it also reduces reliance on fossil fuels.
Right. So
again, it's a win-win.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah, they're also partnering with educational institutions to train the next generation of engineers and technicians in sustainable technologies.
Wow. So they're really taking a holistic approach. Yeah.
They're addressing it on multiple levels.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, it's not just a side project.
Yeah.
It's really woven into the fabric of their business.
Part of their DNA.
It is. It's part of their DNA.
And it's a testament to their belief that sustainability and profitability can go hand in hand.
Absolutely. I think they've proven that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a lot about, their financials, their strategy, their sustainability efforts.
Right.
But let's bring this back to the listener.
Okay.
Why should they care about all this?
Yeah, why does this matter?
What's the takeaway message here?
So I think the first takeaway is that Schneider Electric is a company that's really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
They're growing rapidly. They're financially strong. And they're making these smart investments in the future. So it's a company to watch.
Yeah.
Not just for investors.
Right.
But for anyone who's interested in the future of technology, infrastructure, and sustainability.
They're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
But how does their success translate into
good question.
Real-world benefits?
Yeah. How does this actually impact people's lives?
Yeah. For people in India and beyond, what does it actually mean?
Right.
For our lives.
So their work has a direct impact on the way we live, work, and interact with the world around us.
Okay.
They're building the infrastructure that powers our homes, our businesses, our cities.
Right.
They're making our world more efficient,
Yeah.
more sustainable, and more connected.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in a way that benefits both people and the planet.
So they're not just building infrastructure, they're building...
Yeah, they're building a better future.
A better future.
Yeah.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
But we live in a world of constant change.
We do.
And the technology landscape...
Like, things are changing so fast.
Is evolving so rapidly.
All the time.
How are they adapting to these changes?
That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you stay ahead of the curve?
And ensuring that they stay ahead of the curve.
So I think they're doing a couple of key things.
Okay.
One is they're embracing innovation. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they've been experimenting with cutting-edge technologies.
Okay, like what?
Like extended reality, or XR.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
To enhance safety and efficiency in infrastructure management.
Okay, what does that look like?
So imagine a technician wearing a pair of AR glasses that overlay digital information onto their real-world view.
Oh, wow.
So they could see a virtual schematic of a complex piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
They could get step-by-step instructions for repairs.
Okay.
Or they could even collaborate remotely with an expert who can see what they're seeing.
That's like out of a science fiction movie.
I know.
That's so cool.
Pretty amazing.
But it's happening now.
But it's happening right now.
And it's changing the game.
And it's changing the game.
For infrastructure.
For infrastructure management.
That's awesome. What about AI and IoT?
Okay, so AI and IoT, they're being used to create what we call smart infrastructure.
Yeah.
So these are systems that can collect and analyze data from a vast network of sensors, learn from that data, and then make autonomous decisions.
Wow.
To optimize performance.
That's like a
self-learning.
Yeah, a self-learning system that's constantly improving.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can imagine things like a traffic management system that can adjust traffic light timing in real time to reduce congestion.
Oh, wow.
Or a power grid that can automatically balance supply and demand to prevent blackouts.
So it's like anticipating problems.
Yeah, it's all about anticipating and responding to those changes.
Before they even happen.
Before they even become problems.
Wow. It's incredible to think about.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about the possibilities.
Yeah.
But of course.
Yeah, there's going to be some downsides.
There are always downsides, right?
Yeah.
With any new technology.
Yeah, like what are the...
So I think one of the biggest concerns is privacy.
Okay.
I mean, with all this data being collected and analyzed, are we at risk of creating a surveillance state?
Right. Are we giving up too much?
Yeah. Are we sacrificing our privacy for convenience or efficiency?
Yeah. It's a valid concern.
Yeah, a valid concern.
And it's something we need to be very mindful of.
Yeah. How do we address that?
Well, I think the key is to ensure that the data is being collected and used responsibly with appropriate safeguards in place to protect individual privacy.
Okay.
So transparency is crucial.
Okay.
People need to understand what data is being collected, how it's being used, and who has access to it.
Okay, so it's all about transparency and control.
Transparency, control, and accountability.
Yeah.
Making sure that those systems are in place.
Yeah, what about cybersecurity?
Oh, yeah. Cybersecurity.
These systems sound incredibly complex.
They are?
I mean, are they vulnerable to hacking or sabotage?
That's a huge concern.
Yeah.
I mean, any system that's connected to the internet is potentially vulnerable.
Right.
But I think Schneider Electric and other companies in the space are taking this very seriously.
Okay.
They're investing a lot in cybersecurity.
Okay.
They're building in layers of protection to make those systems as secure as possible.
Okay, so they're using things like encryption.
Yeah, encryption firewalls, intrusion detection systems, regular security audits.
Okay, so they're really trying to stay.
Yeah, they're trying to stay one step ahead.
Ahead of the bad guys.
Of the bad guys, yeah.
But even with the best security, there's always some risk.
There's always some risk. There's no such thing as a perfectly secure system.
Yeah. So what happens if something does go wrong?
Well, that's why it's so important to have redundancy built into these systems. So if one part fails or is compromised, there needs to be a backup.
Right. A plan B.
Yeah, a plan B ready to take over.
Okay, so it's like having a safety net.
Exactly. It's like a safety net to prevent those catastrophic failures.
Okay, so we've talked about the benefits and challenges of these digital solutions.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
But I'm curious to hear your perspective on the bigger picture.
Yeah, the big picture.
How do you see this impacting the future of infrastructure?
It's a good question.
And energy consumption?
So I think we're at a really interesting point in history.
Okay.
I think we're on the cusp of a major transformation.
Okay.
I think digital solutions have the potential to revolutionize the way we design, build, operate, and manage our infrastructure systems.
So it's not just about like small improvements?
No, it's about a fundamental shift in how we think about infrastructure.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So imagine a future where our cities are powered by renewable energy. Our transportation systems are seamlessly integrated and optimized, and our buildings are intelligent and responsive to our needs.
That's like a utopian.
Yeah, it sounds like a utopia.
Yeah.
But I think if we do this right, if we prioritize sustainability, equity, responsibility, it could become our reality.
It's exciting.
It is exciting
to think about. It's an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring to see companies like Schneider Electric really leading the charge.
Yeah, they're at the forefront of this.
Yeah, they're pushing the boundaries and showing what's possible.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But before we wrap up,
I
want to bring this back to the listener and leave them with a few thought-provoking questions to ponder.
Yeah, let's give them something to chew on. All right, so we've talked about a lot with Schneider. We looked at their finances, how they're doing as a company, and they're doing really well. And then also all of their plans for the future and how they're incorporating sustainability. And they're really a leader there. But, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I wanted to leave our listeners with some questions to think about, some food for thought as they sort of process all this information.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let's give them something to ponder as they think about all this.
Yeah, and, a lot of what we talked about with Schneider is their focus on digital solutions and remote asset monitoring. And it really seems like they're, putting all their chips in on this idea that the future of infrastructure is all about being connected and using data.
I think they're right. I think they're making the right bet there, and it's going to pay off big time because as our cities grow, they get more complex. We need these smarter, more efficient systems, and I think we're seeing that even more so now with the need to reduce our environmental footprint. And I think digital solutions are really going to be the key to make all of that happen.
Yeah. It's kind of like we talked about before, that smart home idea, but now we're taking that and scaling it up to a city or to even like a whole country.
Exactly. And we're talking about things like buildings that know when people are there and can adjust the temperature and lights accordingly, or traffic systems that can respond to traffic flows in real time, or power grids that, balance supply and demand automatically to prevent blackouts.
That all sounds amazing. But, of course, with all of this great technology comes a lot of responsibility, right? And I can't help but think about the potential downsides. Like all this data being collected, are we giving up too much privacy? Are we risking creating a surveillance state?
I think that's a really valid concern, and we definitely need to be mindful of those things, as we build this more connected future. The key is making sure that data is collected and used responsibly and that there are safeguards in place to protect our privacy, and that means transparency. People need to know what data is being collected, how it's used, and who has access to it.
Right, so it's all about finding that right balance between innovation and responsibility, making sure that we don't sacrifice one for the other.
Exactly.
But what about cybersecurity? I mean, these systems sound super complex.
Yes.
Are they vulnerable to, hackers or sabotage?
That's another really important issue. Cybersecurity is huge, and Schneider Electric and other companies in this space are investing a ton of money into making these systems as secure as possible, because if they're connected to the internet, there is always some risk. But they're building these layers of protection like encryption firewalls, intrusion detection systems, all kinds of things to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
Okay, so they're really trying to make it as hard as possible to break into these systems.
Right, exactly.
But even with the best security in place, there's always some risk.
Yeah.
And, what happens if something does go wrong?
That's why it's so important to build redundancy into these systems. So if one part fails, there's a backup ready to kick in. It's like having a safety net, to help prevent these catastrophic failures.
That makes a lot of sense. So, thinking of the bigger picture here, how do you see all of this impacting the future of infrastructure and energy consumption in India and, maybe even globally?
I think we're seeing a fundamental shift in how we think about infrastructure. Digital solutions are going to revolutionize how we design, build, and manage these complex systems. And that's going to mean big improvements in efficiency, sustainability, safety, and resilience.
Yeah, it's